Hi guys, here we are. We're at Border City Comics, our favorite comic store, and we're here to review the Infinity Gauntlet, which is the inspiration for the Avengers Infinity War. We're here with our pal, Alicia. How you doing?
Good.
Awesome. Okay, so you have never read Infinity Gauntlet before, right?
No.
And we're going to start with your first impression because you also haven't read many 80s comic books, right?
I'm like the guinea pig here. Yeah.
Yeah. What about superhero comics? Have you read many superhero comics?
Not really. Not outside of what we've done in graphic novel clubs. So I guess Crow, is that a superhero comic?
It is, yes. Set in Detroit and written by a creator from Detroit. But anyway, so Infinity Gauntlet was written by Jim Starlin and drawn by George Pérez and Ron Lim and inked by Joseph Rubinstein. I read this as a kid, and when it came out, it really made an impact on everyone, and me and my friends were blown away by it. Jim Starlin had been away from Marvel for a while. No one had seen Adam Warlock in about 15 years because he was dead, so I didn't know who he was. So in this story, we sort of jump in the middle of it because it's been building up in Silver Surfer and a miniseries called Thanos Quest, and Thanos has acquired the Infinity Gems. The story blew me away. I just reread it this week, and I do have mixed feelings about it. I still like it. But first, let's just start by talking about the art. First by George Pérez, then by Ron Lim. What did you think of the art in the first few issues by George Pérez?
I really enjoyed the art, actually. They had some like really cool things going for it. Like there was this scene where you had the Silver Surfer. He's lying on the bed recounting the story, and you see the outline of his face, and then what he's describing is happening in the lower corner. I thought that they executed a lot of things really well.
Very creative storyteller, George Pérez. Also a very detailed artist. Was there anything else that stood out as far as like contrasting with other comic artists that you've seen?
It was very stylized. Some of the stuff that I read is a little more realistically rendered or very cartoony, and this kind of fell in the middle. He had a definite sense for his art style, and you could tell that he's been doing it for a long time, and he's very comfortable in the style that he has because it's a very strong style.
Good point. Good point. Now, I don't even know if you noticed this, but halfway through the series, actually halfway through issue 4, I believe, they switched artists to Ron Lim. Did you notice that change?
Is it terrible? I didn't notice that
Really?
change. I did not, no.
It's probably for the better, right? Because his style does fit in with George Perez's, but I do have to say, I don't think he's nearly as good as George Pérez. Obviously, the inker stayed the same, so he probably smoothed over the transition. But I really do wish that George Pérez was able to finish the series. But if you didn't notice the difference, then you were fine with it, right?
No, I was fine with it, yeah. I think someone pointed it out to me afterwards, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I feel like I should have caught that, but...
This is almost like a template for other crossovers, and you start off with this incredible menace that's sort of coming, that's happening. The way that they jump around to all the different superheroes, going in for that first issue, what was your impression of that?
It was really confusing at first because I don't have a big basis in superheroes or comic books aside from what I've seen of the Avengers movies. So going into this comic book and having all of these new people introduced, I was actually really scared I wasn't going to be able to keep them all straight at first. Yeah, but then it really came together. And
Did it make you curious about finding out more about these characters at all?
definitely, I'd like to know a little more about Nebula if she has an origin story. I'm sure she does. I know I'm going to look into the Thanos' quest. We were mentioning that before we started shooting. So
Right.
I'd like to know a little bit more because, yeah, you can see the backstories there,
Right.
but you don't know about them, like,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and what's funny is going in, when I first read this, I had no idea who Pip the Troll was, Drax the Destroyer. And so when they introduced these characters that were the sort of switching bodies in this cocoon, the way that the first issue left with its cliffhanger, I'm like, this is not like a normal superhero slugfest. There's something weirder going on here. Then they introduced Adam Warlock. He comes in and leads everybody, and neither one of us knew who he was. Was that off-putting, or did you like the fact that these sort of B characters were taking center stage?
It was a little bit off-putting at first because it's like, oh, here comes this guy named Warlock, and who is he? And I don't know him. And yeah, like, who is he to lead? And he just kind of shows Doctor Strange the inside of his mind. And then Doctor Strange is like, yeah, I'm cool with this. And I'm like, well, I'm the reader and I'm not cool with this. What's happening? Please explain this a little bit more. I feel like they could have let us in a tiny bit more as to why some things were happening, but they didn't, and you didn't find out till the end. So the whole time I'm reading, I'm thinking, well, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And I don't understand. And you understand at the end, but it was kind of frustrating reading through it at first. Yeah.
At this point, he's already omnipotent. He's essentially a god. Now, there's stories like this in other superhero comics, but I think what makes this one different, and this is my favorite part of the series, is the fact that they bring in this council of other omnipotent beings like Eternity, Galactus, Master
Love
Chaos,
and
and Lord Order,
hatred.
love and
Yeah.
hatred. Oh,
Yes.
what did you think of those scenes of them all talking to each other? Wasn't that great?
I thought that was awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was a part where I was okay that I didn't know what was going on and I didn't know who these beings were, but I was like, yeah, I'm into this. This is cool. Yeah.
So, one criticism the artist had, George Perez actually criticized the story, was that he felt that the story could have been told in less pages. And as I was rereading the series, I did feel like it was repeating the same beats over and over again. Like, first we're going to show Thor's reaction, then Spider-Man, then Doctor Strange, then Wolverine. And it seemed to be almost the same thing over and over again. You felt that too?
Absolutely. Yeah. There are some writers that do that too, where they do a two-person point of view book where you flip between the chapters, between the points of view of two characters, and it's so repetitive. And yes, I agree, they could have probably cut it in half or added more in backstory wise for some of the other things that were happening.
You're right. There was there was too much of some and not enough of another. Another thing about the story is that Thanos is so omnipotent that as the story goes, you're like, how in the heck are they gonna defeat this opponent, right? It's just like, it's almost like Jim Starlin's painting himself into a corner. Were you satisfied with the way that the story resolved?
Yes and no. I are we allowed to do spoilers here?
Sure.
Okay, spoiler alert. When Nebula got a hold of the Gauntlet, I actually started rooting for her because she had been tormented and tortured by Thanos for so long that I was just like, yes, this is justified, and I felt that they could have left the glove with her, to be honest. Everyone was so freaking out about her having it. And I don't know. I feel like, the ending could have been different because then Thanos, spoiler alert, lives out the rest of his life farming on this one planet. And he doesn't get any kind of punishment where they collect Nebula and they say, oh, okay, we're going to try her and punish her according to our justice systems. And I was just thinking, like, that's it. You're not even going to take into the account that she's been tortured for so long.
Well, and now as far as what happens with Thanos, the reason I like it is because it's something different. In every other story, they team up and they punch the bad guy really hard. He dies. In this story, Thanos, like you said, he just gets to live out the rest of his life in, I think it was the Soul Gem. He's just chilling out there. Doesn't have his armor on. Doesn't have his helmet. I really like the way that ended. And although I do think there are some things in this that felt like a little bit of fan service, I do overall think Jim Starlin is a great writer. Absolutely. He actually did a really good run on Batman as well. There are other series that led up to this, like we said, Silver Surfer, the Adam Warlock series in the 70s, and those are highly recommended. So my question is, are you now enticed to go back and read these other series?
I absolutely am, yeah. Well, again, I want to check out Thanos' quest now just to see how it all started, and I didn't know about the Silver Surfer, so I'm probably going to check that out after Thanos' quest because I want to know more of the backstory. I want to find out more, like, why are we okay with Thanos having this peaceful life at the end of it? I'd like to know more about that. It kind of reminded me of Sandman a little bit. These godlike powers are bestowed upon someone who probably shouldn't have godlike powers, and he goes around and he just messes things up. And the only difference being is the Gauntlet doesn't really belong to anyone, whereas in Sandman it belonged to Sleep, so it had a place to go back to. Where this one, it was kind of interesting when they were trying to take the Gauntlet from Nebula. I was sitting there thinking, well, who's rightfully fit to have it? If Nebula's not fit to have it and Thanos sure as heck isn't fit to have it, like, who should this go to? So I'd like to see more going forward from this series to see what Adam Warlock does with the Gauntlet, because he kind of reassures everyone, like, oh, no, it's gonna be okay. And talk to Doctor Strange, he saw my mind, and Doctor Strange is even saying, well, your mind has changed now in ways that I don't even know because of the Gauntlet. So,
well, if you're looking for other stories, I'll be happy to inform you that there's an immediate sequel called Infinity War, then there's Infinity Crusade, then there's Warlock and the Infinity Watch, and then there's Warlock, I think, solo series. And so it does kind of go on for a few years, fizzles out, then Jim Starlin comes back and revives everything again. So yes, there's definitely plenty more where that came from.
More superheroes dying and being revived.
Okay, so my final question is, do you recommend this comic?
I do, yeah. I really did enjoy it, despite my complaints. I know it sounds like I've been complaining a lot about it. I enjoyed it. The art was good. I think it was a good spot for a beginner to jump in and kind of get a little familiarized with some of the different superheroes out there, because like I said, I only knew about the superheroes from the Marvel films, but to see some of the other ones, and then when Captain America is looking at that list of the superheroes who have disappeared, I'm reading through it going, oh, I recognize that one, but who are all these other ones? So it does kind of open it up to say, like, this is what's out there. So yes, I think this is a really good one to start off with.
There you go. Highly recommended. Infinity Gauntlet, available at local comic book stores everywhere. 5 or 6 Infinity Gems? I don't remember.
I wasn't clear on that because it looked like there were 6 on the Gauntlet, but they seemed like they were only talking about 5 of them. Yeah.
You should probably know that, but I will.